That should just be the intro to the video. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Miranda and I am trying to get better at this whole uploading thing. I have not posted in the past 2 months even though I meant to. And that is partially just due to a lot of shakeups in my life and I am trying to get back on track now. So this is going to be my February wrap up because even though I didn't quite stick to the YouTube thing, is he in the picture? Galcifer!
He's eating the plant.
Please don't eat the plant. You can sniff the plant, but you can't eat it. Please don't eat that one. Hey! I said please don't eat that one. Come here. Say hi to the camera. Say hi. Say hi. Naughty boy. Yeah, go get your mousey. Oh. Okay, cat break already. So even though I haven't stuck to the YouTube uploading thing, I have been reading a lot this month. I have read, I believe, 15 books. So this is going to be my wrap up of what I've read and what I hope to read in March, since that starts tomorrow. The first book I read this month was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This book follows 4 different Native American men after they had an incident while hunting and killed a deer that they probably shouldn't have. They were hunting in an area that they shouldn't have been. And the weird events that follow and lead to the demise of these 4 people. It is, I believe, classified as a horror novel. I thought it was really disturbing in a really, really weird way. I didn't completely personally understand all of the references and the draw on Native American culture, but I thought it was really good. It definitely thanks guys. Love you. It definitely lived up to the whole weird, disturbing horror expectation, which I find typically when I read kind of more disturbing books, they're thrillers, and I haven't necessarily been too taken in by those, but I was definitely taken in by this. I really liked the writing style. I liked just how weird and hard to understand it was. And it wasn't hard to understand because it was some deep philosophical thing. It just didn't make sense. And it didn't make sense in a way that I really enjoyed. Because, you know, sometimes things don't make sense and you get frustrated. No, this I really enjoyed, not knowing exactly why things were happening or what was going on, or understanding what all the motives were besides this, you know, deer had been murdered. And yeah, I personally really liked this one. I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a spooky, disturbing read. And I believe I gave this one 4.5 stars. And yeah, this was technically not the first book of the month. I'm actually not going to list these in the order I read them, but I'm going to group them together by series and approximately when I read them. So yeah, this was the first book of the month, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. The second book that I read was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers, and this is a novella, a sci-fi novella about a woman who is on a space exploration and they go to 3 different planets. It's very character driven, specifically from the main character's point of view, but you do get information about the people who are on the team with her, and you get background information on kind of how space exploration developed and the history of the company she was, or I believe it's a university or nonprofit, that sent her on the space exploration. And it was very emotional. I didn't expect to be as emotionally captivated as I was. It's very contemplative. You find yourself kind of having to ask yourself the same questions the characters are, of how would it feel if you were cut off from your whole life, your whole family for over 14 years, and knowing that everyone else was aging while you weren't, or were aging significantly more slowly than your family was, and asking the question, how would you feel if you might not ever be able to return back home to Earth and see those people you loved again. This one I believe I gave 4.5 stars to. I read this one in just a couple hours. It's the first time I've ever actually bought a book and read it immediately after buying it, so I felt pretty proud of myself there. But it was very, very thought-provoking, very touching, very well written, and I definitely want to read more of Becky Chambers' writing because I have heard that she writes very character-driven stories, and I did really, really enjoy that, and it's one of the first real science fiction books that I read. So the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth books that I read this month is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. This includes The Raven Boys is the first one. The Dream Thieves is the second. Blue Lily, Lily Blue is the third. And The Raven King is the fourth and final book. I won't go into too many details on all of them just because it will give some spoilers, but I did rate the series. Overall, it was consistently about a 4.5 stars. I do tend to rate YA books a little bit easier than adult books, I've been noticing, just because I notice they're not as developed or as serious or as deep or whatever, and mostly I'm reading them just to have a good, fun, quick read. So yeah, I believe these were all about a 4 or 4.5 stars. The story focuses on a girl named Blue whose family is basically, they're all psychics. All the women in her family are psychics, but she is not. She is an amplifier. So she can boost the psychic ability or psychic aura of people and things around her just by touching them or being nearby. So she's not a psychic, but her family is. She meets this group of 4 boys from a local private boys' school. She refers to them as Raven Boys since the school symbol is a raven. And she meets these 4 boys and becomes captivated by them and gets involved in their friend group while they are on a hunt for a supposedly not dead Welsh king from several hundred years ago who was brought over to America, and if you find him, you get granted a wish. The main person in the quest, Gansey, who's kind of the driving force of the whole story, is looking for him after discovering that a close encounter with death he had was only not fatal because of dying on the ley line where this Welsh king was buried. So he goes on this, he makes it his whole life's mission from when he almost died at the age of 10 to find this Welsh king, and so the story kind of follows that. There's a lot more lore and magic to the story than I thought there was going to be, more than I expected for a YA book, and I really, really liked that. It wasn't the most well-developed thing in the whole world, but I really liked how it was developed and where the story went. I liked pretty much all of the characters. The only one I found not as enjoyable was Adam. I really liked him at first, and then this whole, oh, I'm poor and I hate all these rich people even though I'm friends with them thing just kind of got really annoying, because it felt like the author was trying to drive home the point that he was poor by repeatedly saying it instead of necessarily showing it. And it just got annoying and it felt overdone. But his arc did resolve in a way that I liked. He did get some growth, and overall I liked all of the characters again, and I just liked how it ended. It wasn't super romance heavy, which I enjoyed as well. I don't necessarily care for things that are like super sappy, love at first sight, blah blah blah, all of that, or like super like sexual heavy. Yes? Are you agreeing with your mama? Okay, pretty boy. Yeah, I don't tend to like books that have a very like sexually driven focus between the characters when there's like a whole other plot that's supposed to be going on. I just don't find it entertaining or useful at all. Most of the time it has no actual impact on the plot at all. So I really liked how the romance was done in this. It was a lot more subtle, it was a lot more gradual, and overall there wasn't just a huge emphasis on it, and the plot actually got to do what it needed to do instead of being overshadowed by all of this like pining and love drama and all that, because there was like a little bit of a love triangle, not terribly, but yeah. So yeah, overall The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater got about an average series rating of 4 stars. So the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th books that I read were part of the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. So there are 4 books. Actually, I believe there's 5 or 6 books out now, but I read the first 4. The first 4 go together as like an overall arc. The things that happen in the first book still influence the 4th book. Technically, they still influence the 5th book, but this is all kind of just one big arc split between 4 novellas. So that includes All Systems Red is the first one. Artificial Condition is the second. Rogue Protocol is the third. And Exit Strategy is the 4th. So this follows what is known as a SEC unit or a security unit that has overridden what is called a governor module in its system that prevents it from being super controlled by the company or the people that it is working for. This system or world that they're in is very corporate driven. A lot of things and explorations are paid for by corporations, and they have to have contracted security details that are these basically almost bot human hybrids. It's mostly a bot that has some organic parts to it, especially like a face and a brain. But overall, they can be controlled by this governor module. And our main character, who never really gives himself a name other than Murderbot, hacked his governor module after an incident that led it to taking part in a massacre where its governor module shorted and it was able to be overridden and forced to kill. So it hacked its governor module to prevent that from happening again, because it does have some lingering grief and regrets over that incident in which it had essentially no control over. So it follows them as they help a scientific exploration team from an actual non-corporate entity who is being attacked by a corporate entity on a planet, and the series goes from there. Goes through the whole implications of a bot kind of trying to gain its own autonomy and having to slip under the radar in a society where these types of bots or bot human hybrids are technically just property and essentially just weapons or security details. Overall, I liked it, and again, the series average was about a 4-star. That was actually, I think all my books that I read this month were either 4 or 4.5 stars, so it was a pretty good reading month. I wish that there was a little bit more world development. Like, there's a lot of things that could be explained deeper and then they are. There's a lot more world building that could be going on, and it does take place, it's I believe a first person perspective from the murder bot. Yeah, I just wish there was overall a little bit more development. I have started the 5th book. It hasn't really connected with me as much as the first 4 did, but the 4th one was kind of advertised as the whole series finale, the whole culmination of the series, and then another one was put out, so it kind of seemed like it got popular and then more was written, whereas the 4th one I believe was supposed to just be the finale. Yeah, even in the little expert it says the 4th and final. So there's a little bit of hesitation there, knowing that, oh, it's one of those things where it kind of got popular and then more was written, so it feels a little bit disconnected from the original material. I will probably try to finish reading that this month, though, the 5th, which I believe is called Network Effect. It's over there somewhere. But yeah, overall, the Martha Wells Murderbot Diaries is about a 4-star average for the series. So the 11th, 12th, and 13th books of the month was the Book of the Ancestor series, or trilogy, by Mark Lawrence. That includes Red Sister, Grey Sister, and Holy Sister. So this trilogy follows the story of Nona, who at the beginning is a 10-year-old orphan who was sold, well, not necessarily an orphan, but essentially she was a 10-year-old girl who was sold to child takers and given to the fighting rings in the capital city of her kingdom. They live on this planet Abeth, which is a planet orbiting a dying red star, and ice is slowly taking over most of the planet, and at this point there's only a place called the Corridor, which is about a 50-mile swath of land that goes around essentially what I assume is going to be the equator of the planet. and there's political struggles because of this as the ice continues to move forward. People from all over the kingdom and the planet are being forced closer and closer together, and of course there's going to be resource and land shortages. Well, Nona's sold to the fighting rings, and after almost killing a older man there who attacked one of her friends, she is rescued from being hanged literally at the last second by the head of a nearby convent, Apis Glass. She is taken to this convent to train to become a nun, and essentially these nuns are killing machines. So the story follows Nona as she works her way up through the classes, the red class, the gray class, and the holy class, and finally eventually becomes a full-fledged sister of this convent. And these sisters are trained in fighting skills with swords and other techniques, poisons, deception, disguises, along with the more religious aspect of the study, and this thing called the path, which is kind of seems a bit more of a metaphysical thing, like an energy running through the whole world, that if they can get to the path, they can harness that energy. So the whole story follows Nona and her personal struggles. There are both personal plots in play and larger political plots at play. And overall, I really enjoyed the series. Again, I think the first 2 books were 4.5 stars and the last one was 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the characters. Again, it focuses... Actually, I didn't say that. It focuses on an all-girls or all-women's convent, where everyone there is a woman. There are some allusions to there being LGBTQ characters, especially some of the nuns. Again, because you're in an all-women's convent, you're going to find comfort in those that are closest to you, and I did really enjoy the couples that showed up, but that's another thing. So yeah, it's a lot of very strong, very well written female characters, which I was a little bit hesitant about, knowing that this is written by a male author, but there was thankfully not really any like objectification. A lot of the characters, there's a very, very wide array of character types and body sizes and body types, and there seemed to be a lot of good diversity as well. And it was just very well written. I thought it was very well done. And Nona's personal arc, she's a very flawed character, which was really nice. So not only do we get to have women unashamedly being strong, we got to have very flawed characters as the driving force of the plot as well. And thankfully, although Nona was very good, thank you, Calcifer, at the things that she was doing, she also wasn't perfect. There were some things that she couldn't do as well, so she wasn't like this wholly perfect woman who was going to save the whole world. And that was nice. It was a very much, she wasn't the chosen one, but she still influenced a lot of things along the way. Again, this was another book where romance, again, wasn't very much at all focused on. There were mentions to other couples in the book. There were mentions of a couple times when Nona had crushes, and in the last book there was references to some relationships that she had, but again, it was like said in passing. A lot of her driving force is purely the power of friendship and the people that she holds of value to her, not just because she has romantic or sexual feelings for them, but because they're her friends and they hold a very, very deep place in her heart. So that was actually really nice to have that as a very specific driving point in the whole series, is that it was her friends that were motivating her and not some other like sexual or romantic desire. That was very nice. But yeah, overall I definitely would really recommend that one. It is very it is a lot darker. It is very violent and very graphic in some of the depictions of the violence, so that is something to keep in mind, is that it definitely would be some trigger warnings on this one. But it was very, very good, and I really enjoyed. I know that he wrote another book focused in this same world that I'm interested in reading, and I really want to know more about the world. In the last book there were some things that happened that I thought hopefully might be explained a bit more in this other book that he published. So yeah, those were, I believe, 11, 12, and 13 for the month. Book number 14 for the month is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Currently, Leigh Bardugo, I believe, is my favorite author. I've enjoyed every single book that I've read by her, which has been the Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology, and now this. This follows Galaxy Alex Stern as she moves her life from being in LA, where she was involved in drug selling and trafficking and drug use, and was the sole remaining survivor of a multiple homicide. After that incident, she's given a chance to go to Yale because she has a very unique ability to see spirits. So she goes to Yale and is put into this society. I believe it's called Leth or Leith. I'm going to say Leith because that rolls easier off the tongue, but please correct me if I'm wrong. The Leith House essentially keeps a tab on these secret societies that operate out of Yale and New Haven because of its very spiritual power centers, essentially. And there's these 8 houses that are centered on tombs, and they have different sorts of magic, and they are very involved in like political rings, corporate rings, stock market, things like that, that their magic and influences reach very, very high places. But to make sure that people aren't being abused, the magic isn't being abused, and nothing truly unsavory happens, the Leith House or Leth House kind of has people who watch over these rituals and make sure rules are being followed. Well, when she gets there and is taking care of some of these rituals, there's a murder on campus, and one of the person who was training her goes missing. So it's very much kind of a murder mystery novel with magic and another mystery going on and just a whole bunch of things going on, which is the nice part. The magic system is very interesting and very, very different from her other books, and I look forward to learning more about it because you get bits and pieces there, but it's very obvious that there's going to be more explained in the other books because I believe there's supposed to be 5 total at least for this series. The murder mystery part was very interesting, just all the connections made. Definitely lots of trigger warnings on this for sexual assault, gory depictions of murder and violence. Lots of trigger warnings on this one, but if you can stomach those types of things, I thought it was a very interesting book with lots of different twists and turns, and the ending kind of hits you out of nowhere. You're like, whoa, didn't see that one coming at all. And the setup for the next book at the end is also very promising as well. This one I believe I gave 4.5 stars. And yeah, I genuinely enjoyed this, and I really can't wait to see what happens in the next ones with Alex and her group of little misfits. The 15th and final book that I read for this month is a graphic novel called Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. This follows Nova, a witch, and Tam, a werewolf, as they reconnect and work together to fight a essentially dark or evil spirit that is haunting the forest where they both grew up, in the town that they both grew up, where they're both now living again. It was great. I really liked this. It was really cutesy. The magic was really cute. Nova and her 2 grandmothers were great. Tam was awesome. And Tam is a non-binary person that uses they, them pronouns. And Nova is a hard of hearing girl who has hearing aids. So there was great representation of both sexuality and disabilities, and I just really, really liked it. They were really cute, really, really lovable characters. The art was adorable. It was just really great, and I really wish there was more actually to this. I believe this is a collection of all the little volumes, and it was just really cute. I definitely give this a recommendation. I read it in one evening. It was just really easy and light and fluffy and kind of just what I needed in the moment. It's not too heavy. There is obviously a little bit of conflict and a little bit of a fight against good and evil or something along those lines. But it was overall really cute and fluffy and just really, really great. I believe I gave this 5 stars actually. And yeah, that was the last book that I've read for this month. And overall I had a really good reading month. That was probably the most books I've ever read in a month in my entire life. I really don't expect to recreate that anytime soon. So with that being said, my March TBR is going to be shorter. It's still a little bit more ambitious than I necessarily think I'll be able to accomplish, partially because I am feeling a little bit burnt out on reading, because that's pretty much all I did this month. But yeah, I do expect you... Did she take it again?
Yeah.
Adora has a habit of finding items or toys that she likes and walking around with them in her mouth. Um, it's really cute. She's so cute. Anyways, I believe that there are 9 books on my TBR for this month, so let's get into those. So first up on my TBR for the month is Gideon the Ninth, and of course the follow-up, Harrow the Ninth. My husband has read both of these and is very excited that I have started them so that he can see my reactions to them. According to him, there's a lot of really funny one-liners in here. And this follows Gideon, a resident of the 9th house out in our solar system, as they go with Harrow, the essentially kind of the daughter of the 2 rulers of the 9th house, to the Emperor's planet to take part in this whole competition to become a lictor, something like that. Anyways, the tagline for this is lesbian necromancers explore a haunted gothic mansion in space, so what more do you really need to know? Here it does become part murder mystery later on, so that might just be something to keep in mind if you don't really like murder mysteries. And I've heard it's super weird. Other than that, I'm trying not to know too much about it before I go into it to keep myself ready for whatever it throws at me. And yeah, these are the first books I hope to read this month, and I hope to hopefully get them done soon. Because from my husband's reactions, they're really good and really funny, and we're definitely waiting for the 3rd one to come out, which I believe is next year. These are by Tasman Mirror, and yeah, the artwork is incredible on them as well. They're just beautiful books to look at. Next on my list is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, or Harrow. Hey, that goes with Harrow the Ninth. Didn't even think about that. This follows 3 sisters as they take part in the suffragette movement in Salem. I don't know too much other than they were witches, so there's a lot of ties between witchcraft and the women's rights movement, or women's right to vote movement. I don't know too much about it other than that, and I'm trying to keep it that way. I've had both a coworker and my best friend, who I borrowed this from, say that it's really great, really emotional, really moving. My best friend said she cried at the end, so I'm really hoping for something really good. I've heard the writing style is great, and witches and feminism, it's kind of all it takes to get me hooked. So this is going to be my 2nd book for the month that I want to read, and I'm really looking forward to it because, look at that cover. Just look at the cover. It's beautiful. Next on the list, there are no particular order after this, is The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. This follows 2 sides of a war where battles are taking place on the oceans and ships that have been made out of dragon bones. Dragons hadn't been seen for a long time, and then finally one shows up and they see it as a sign that the tides of war are about to change. I don't know too much about it, but I keep seeing it pop up like at every bookstore I go to, so I finally caved and checked it out from the library and am very interested to see where it goes. I believe this is part of a series. This is the 1st book in it, so if I like it, I will continue the series, but this is the 1st one, and yeah, hopefully I'll like it. Next on my reading list is Descendant of the Crane by Joan He. This follows Yesenia, a princess who is suddenly made queen after the death of her father. Believing that it wasn't just a death, it was a murder, she employs the help of a soothsayer, who's a type of magician, to help her gain information, as she suddenly finds that she can't trust any of her advisors or people in the court. And she has to walk the line between playing the queen and trying to figure out what is happening or happened to her father, and hopefully prevent a war along the way. I believe this is a standalone, and it's just always looked really interesting. And again, the cover. This is a YA book, so I think it would be pretty easy to read, and I'm looking forward to this one. This one's also a library pick. After that is The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. This is taking place in the same world as the Book of the Ancestor trilogy that I've already read, and this follows an ice triber, people who live on the ices of Abeth, where the sun is dying and pretty much everything's ice at this point, or almost everything is ice. I've heard some conflicting reviews about this one, so I have tried to keep myself from not knowing much about it before I go into it, but this is definitely on the list for this month. So next on the list is All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This follows a princess, her name is Amora, who has to demonstrate her mastery on a very specific type of magic, which has to do with magic of souls, in order to ascend and reign. And when something goes wrong with her demonstration of her mastery, I say mastery and sorcery at the same time. Her mastery of this specific type of magic, she is forced to flee and strikes up a deal with a sailor, or I believe he's a sailor, who says he will help her flee as long as she helps him regain his magic, and things go from there. So there's the first book, All the Stars and Teeth. And All the Tides of Fate. So this is a YA duology, so thankfully these are the only 2 books in it. I have them both. I can go ahead and just binge read it. And yeah, these are on the list for the month, and I hope to like them because, again, the cover, I don't know what it is, but the covers this month are just fantastic. So the last ones on the list for this month is a graphic novel series, Wires and Nerves by Marissa Meyer. This follows the events of the Lunar Chronicles, also by Marissa Meyer, where Eiko, the android, who is very human-like, takes it upon herself to find the leader of a pack of wolf hybrid soldiers that are threatening the peace between... Thank you, Calcifer. We appreciate your contribution. They're threatening the peace between Earth and Luna, so Eiko takes it upon herself to kind of help take care of that. Again, trying not to know too much about these books before I go in, so I have some sort of surprise when things happen. So I'm reading Wires and Nerves, the first volume, and then Wires and Nerves Gone Rogue, the second volume. I believe these are the only 2 volumes out. I don't know if there's plans to make more of them, but if there are, I'll probably read them because I really, really like most of Marissa Meyer's works. The only one I haven't liked is Heartless, and that was mostly just because the development of the Wonderland area was very underwhelming, and the whole driving point of Catherine going mad was just her lover died that she barely knew, and that one was her weakest work, in my opinion, honestly. Her other books have been great, so the Lunar Chronicles and the Renegades trilogy, I've really liked them both. And knowing that I really liked the Lunar Chronicles and Eiko in particular, I'm really excited to get more of her character in this. So that is it for this video. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching my February wrap-up and March TBR. If you have any thoughts on any of the books listed here, definitely leave a comment below. I'd love to chat with you about them. Follow me on Instagram. My handle will be down in the description box below. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. I hope to do an actual unboxing of my Peace and Pages subscription box this month. The theme is the Emerald Isles, which just sounds really fun. Potentially St. Patrick's Day inspired. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. Thank you all for sticking with me and for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye! You want to help Mommy's video?